All right, now it's time to put these lug nuts into this hub. So I'm gonna get a little time lapse of this. It should be kind of fun to watch. All right, call me crazy, but I gotta torque these, lug bolts down. So I'm gonna put this in the wheel and then put the wheel down like this, and then torque a couple of them, switch the bolts around, torque a couple of them. And I think that should work out. You know, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do out here. So wish me luck. That worked. So that's exciting. I'm gonna do the other one and then pack some bearings and then put these spindles on. Pretty exciting. All right, after some searching, I found this bearing packer. So all I'm gonna do is take these bearings. I was working on packing one of them by hand, but I found this bearing packer. So you're gonna put it in here, put the cap on. It's hard to do with one hand. Let's see if I can do it. Put the cap on like this, and then you're gonna pull the bearing downward. I kind of jury-rigged this thing, doesn't look great. But you're gonna spin it and then fill it full of grease, and then it'll be packed. Should be good. All right, got them all packed. So now I'm gonna throw them in this hub. So for the bigger bearing, you're gonna put it in the back and then put the seal on. And then on the front, it's got this screw off thing, and then I'm gonna throw the little bearing in there. And then you put them on the spindle. Should be fun. All right, super simple process now. Now that I got this all greased up, cleaned up and greased up, you just slide this onto here and then put this washer and nut and cotter key onto the end. So I'm gonna do that now, get a little time left. All right, thankfully the greasy part is done. Putting those spindles on is pretty greasy. But now I'm gonna put these bolts in through here. You know, they go through the rotor and into the hat, and then Loctite them up, do both of them, and then we should be able to put them on the spindles. I'm excited to see how they look on there. So, time to get to work. Because we have some holdups on the brake lines, but I do have a lot of work to get this done. So I got this side installed with the caliper. Came out beautiful. These fit on here super nice. You gotta shim them up, but it's a straightforward process if you read the instructions. And I'll kind of go over that, little process over on this side. Still gotta throw it on this side. And then I'll be moving on to the back. I gotta pull the diff cover, as you know, to get the axles out, and then throw these parking brake flanges on. So basically they have you start out with just one shim on each of these bolts, and then you put it on there, throw the caliper on there, and then just kind of visually inspect if it's centered in here this way and also up and down this way. And then once you're happy with it, you just throw Loctite on them. Throw Loctite on just these ones. These ones get oil, and then torque it down. It's very straightforward, super easy. All right, so super easy. Just use the impact to tighten these bolts down. You can see them somewhere back there. And then these two. And you can see with one shim, it's pretty much lined up, centered on there. And then they recommend you throw the, brake pads in here and make sure it doesn't drag too hard. And the, the gap on each side is pretty much equal. And then I'll be tightening this. It does look good, so I'd imagine these brake pads are gonna, fit in there just fine. So we'll get another little video once these are installed. All right, got this guy on these guys, and now I'm gonna torque them down with this torque wrench. I like using these, bend type torque wrenches because they're really accurate. Torque them down to 47, and then for these nuts that go on these studs, they get 30 foot-pounds. So once that's completed, and I put this crossbar in here with the brake pads, then this side is done. Just need the brake lines. got to keep moving forward. And I did realize, so I cut on, or back here, I cut the backing plate for the drums off, hoping that I wouldn't have to remove these axles, but I will have to remove the axles because these guys, the kind of the mounting plate and that doubles as the parking brake, the caliper mounts to these bolts, and then these go on the axle flange there. You're gonna have to take the axle out because obviously you can't get the axle through there. So that's gonna be a project in and of itself. Gonna take the cover off in there, pull the axles, and then slide that guy on there. All right, so I did get these lines ran, the main hard lines for the front brakes, and also got the master booster, or the booster in, and the master cylinder. So that's pretty much done. I'm gonna start diving into taking this rear diff apart. So that's the next project. Take the cover off, take the bolt out, take the C-clips out, and then pull the axles and throw these guys on there. I got an extra gasket, and that's kind of the next piece of the puzzle. All right, hope you enjoyed that little time lapse of me getting this cover off. It's pretty cool to see the inside of a diff. Everything looks to be in tip-top shape, so I'm glad about that. It's cool to watch it. And also when I spin this axle, you can see, and you can know that it's a posi differential or a limited slip because both axles spin the same way. If it was open, then one axle would spin the opposite way. Kind of an interesting fact. So now what I'm gonna do is take, let's see where it's on. This one, you see this bolt in here. That's hard to see. But this bolt here, I'm gonna take that out, and then the C-clips will drop out, and then I can pull this axle out, and that axle out. And then we should be set to put the, parking brake flanges on there, and then I'll put the cover back on, but I'm gonna flush the fluid. Got the axles out. Easy process once you get the cover off. But now it's time to start installing these rear brakes. So as I said, this goes on, and then you can slide the axles back in. And then you do have to get, I found that I think they're inch bolts in the stock brakes for the, the drums. They're in the box down here. So I got 1.25 inches because this is a little thicker than the original backing plate. And you do have to make sure, you can see it says left hand. You have to make sure that they go on the right side, and then these mount to this bracket. So it's really a pretty easy install. Spoke a little too soon here. I am still struggling to track down some leaks on this freaking braking system, and the double flares defeated me. Onward. Sad day in paradise. It looks like this size of hole does not correspond to this axle flange size. Like this, this high spot on the axle flange is actually larger, meaning I'm probably gonna have to machine this. I'm gonna take it to work and do a little machining on here. I think this differential is likely from a Pontiac Firebird 2nd gen because it has the larger flange. Here's an illustration of what was going on. So what I thought I had was a 10/12 bolt Chevy, which has a tubing OD of 2.725, but actually I had a Buick Olds or Pontiac with the 2.84 inch outer diameter. So had to get it machined. Kind of a bummer, but I do have other work to complete. I still got to run that brake line and also make the little push rod to go from the brake pedal to the power booster. So I definitely have some work cut out for me. Got them both machined, so now I'm gonna throw them on. All right, got these backing plates on, but for the parking brake, I had to make these. So I cut the swages off these parking brake lines, and then I'm gonna put these on like this. Right, you can see I'm gonna cut the cable, put those on, and then we'll put a bolt in there and it'll go on there. So that should work good. we're gonna buy a swaging tool, so I'm a little bit held up there until tomorrow. But then those are gonna go on, axles are gonna go back in, and now I'm working on the front brake lines. Putting these on, you can see, show my light. But I finally got the brake lines, so those will be going on today, and we're making headway. All right, got these brake lines on. They came out nice. I put some Teflon tape on these so it shouldn't leak. And then I got, some of these clamps in here. And I am gonna move on to starting to make this rear brake line. So for the rear brake line, I just got like 25 feet of stainless tubing because it has to be converted to 3/16 line. And then I also got this gravel shield here. And then once it gets to the back, you gotta split it. So I got, an AN to NPT converter. And then also something to split it right here. All right, after much trial and tribulation, I got this rear brake line in. Runs on the bottom of the car. You guys can see it. Runs to the back. And I also assembled this rear end, put it back together, and got these rear brakes on there. So I've made pretty significant progress. Now I'm working on building a little short brake line to go from this, splitter in here to these brake lines. Ladies and gents, big update. So I did get this all installed and it was driving. And you can see kind of one change that I made is you actually have to stagger the calipers because it has staggered shocks. So there's some interference with the brake line with the shock. And then you can see on this side, it's actually clocked the other way. So one thing to note there is that you have to do that on a staggered shock car. And now I'm going to be working on getting these flex lines. I'm going to take these out and just hardline these rear brake lines in because we have had some leaking problems at those interfaces, between the flex line and the, the converter there where I made the hard line. So we're just going to go hard lines all the way, and then hopefully that kind of resolves the leaking issue and also gives me better brake pedal. All right, so I got these hard lines installed in the rear. I ended up just buying one for this side, but I'm gonna end it off here. Hopefully you enjoyed this little series and learned something during this brake install. Thanks for watching and subscribe. Hey, thanks for stopping into the Bluebird Enterprises YouTube channel. If you like what you saw, give me a big thumbs up, and hopefully you're leaving with a bigger smile than you came in with.